Hey everyone, and welcome to Mind, Body, and Roots. I have my amazing friend Rauf Ali here. We went to Penn State together. He is a business and healthcare consultant, an entrepreneur. You name it, this guy has done everything. Him and I go way back from, like I said, adventures to Penn State, and we've always kind of stayed in touch. So, Rauf, please introduce yourself and let the world know who you are.
Hey man, excited to be here. It's like you mentioned, Rauf Ali, man, we've been to Penn State together. We had an amazing time there. But yeah, I'm 30 years old. We obviously had this journey of undergrad together, but since then have I think both grown so exponentially, both in professional and personal endeavors. But excited to connect with you, man, on this podcast, and congrats on it, by the way. It's very exciting. But yeah, looking forward to it, man.
No, thank you. Thank you for making the time, man. So, all right, Ralph, tell people about your journey a little bit. So, let's start at Penn State and go from where you are today.
All right, yeah, man. Penn State was what now, 7 years ago?
Almost. No, dude,
No,
eight actually.
almost 8 years ago. Yeah, man, it's been
Nine.
it's been a crazy journey. Obviously, post undergrad, you always think about what you want to do. A lot of people have their mindset, which I think you did, which I was so jealous of. I'm like, oh, what do I want to do with my career and my life? I still had no idea. I had a snippet of an idea, but not really like was 100% sure to where I wanted to go. You obviously had your dental path and you were stuck on it, and I love that for you. But for me personally, my journey was a little different. Like I was like, do I get into the clinical side? Do I get into the business side? Do I even not do medicine or not do healthcare at all? Um, Obviously, from there, post grad, I took a year off to really understand my wants and my needs and what I really was interested in. From there, it was like working at a hospital, shadowing doctors. Is this what I really wanted to do? Do I want to go to med school? Do I want to spend 8 years in med school? And, do I want to do that whole journey of becoming a physician? Which, by the way, I would love to, even to this day, be a physician. I thought for me, the journey of 8 years, the growth between going either to going to med school and then the opportunity cost of like missing out on a whole bunch of other things you can learn. For me, I was like, I'm gonna just take the other route. Obviously, I had a mentor in that time. I had a big doctor who was transitioning from being a physician to like a big time CMO for a big corporate hospital, and he taught me a lot personally. He taught me a lot of things to know about corporate America and corporate healthcare specifically. Said, there's a lot more growth and uh, opportunities in corporate healthcare versus clinical healthcare. Clinical healthcare is great. I mean, we need physicians here. It's like we definitely cannot live without you guys. But from a clinical perspective, there's also a business perspective. America runs on the business side of corporate America. Without the business side of the healthcare, you cannot do the clinical side of healthcare. So what I realized and learned really from those years off, about a year and a half off, was really just there's so much more to healthcare than being a doctor, being a PA, being a nurse, being anyone that's like on the front end of things, which you see as a patient. You don't really understand like there's so much on the back end that's happening. So then that really opened up a lot of opportunities for me. Ended up going to MBA school, got my MBA degree in 2022 because of that, and decided, I was going to leave the clinical path and pursue the business side of healthcare. So we got to 2023, post MBA. I got my first job out of my MBA here, the company I'm still currently at called Scale Healthcare. We are a all-in-one consulting firm working on the consulting side as your typical management firm. We only operate in the healthcare field. So from your doctors to your dentists to your everyday, healthcare provider. And then the other side, we're sort of an investment bank, which helps us connect providers or help us connect sponsors, PEs, and these big money makers to how do I buy smaller clinics? How do I, consolidate practices? So we do a lot of the diligence work for them, and try to really help them pretty much, streamline everything from consolidation, post-acquisition work, all that stuff. So it's been a lot. I think I really, really am excited to share this journey of like from clinical to business and how the business side really affected me personally and helped me start up some side hustles we'll talk about. But yeah, a lot of the journey is definitely each step is a learning curve, man. And it's such a journey, and I'm excited to get into it. So
Yeah. So, you mentioned side hustles, and, funny enough, people wouldn't expect it. But, for those that don't know, Ralph started a boba company, and now he did like a little wedding business. And like, I just want him to talk about it because I think it's so unique and different. because most people our age, you hear about these like young people having these companies and starting them up, but you don't actually know the background of the story. So Ralph, please like kind of enlighten us on this. Like, how'd you get the ideas? What ended up happening? Where is it now, etc.
Nah, for sure. So the boba is funny. The boba started really randomly, man. It was like peak COVID in 2022, and we were all bored in our houses, man. Everybody's knows the journey of a lockdown and where they've been. It's like what happened during September 11. You know what happened when Kobe died. You know exactly where you were when Michael Jackson died. But I literally like the COVID time was such an era. I miss it actually. But during COVID, man, during COVID, it was just like everybody was at home. We were bored. I would FaceTime a lot of my friends, like live 5 minutes away. We would be in like group like house party calls. I don't know if you ever remember the
Yep.
the app called House Party. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, and then all of a sudden I was just like, man, I'm trying to do something like purposeful. Like let's do something. Let's start a business, bro. I'm that type of guy that walks into a restaurant and just thinks about how much money they make on a revenue basis. Like I'm like, how much money do you think this restaurant bringing in? And we would have like these conversations about, you know, in the past 30 minutes we saw 40 customers come in. Let's do the math, whatever. So that's how my mind works. So essentially, um, we were like out obsessed with boba at the time. Back in 2022, that was the thing, man. Especially in Texas. I don't know how it was back in the Northeast, but in Texas, like boba was the thing. I would drink boba like every day. And so I was like, you know what? Well, how can I make this like passion into something like a business, like something I was interested in? That during the time, most of pretty much all the boba shops were closed, right? We were on lockdown. So all
Mm.
of them were closed. A lot of them ended up actually shutting down post COVID, unfortunately. But I was like, man, how do I get my boba fix? Like I'm itching, like we need this. And I came up with this idea of like boba from home. It was just like a very random thought. I was like, yo, why can't we just make this at home? Like we can make everything at home. Like we can make coffee at home. You can make food. Like you can make everything you can think of at home. But like, why hasn't no one thought of like making boba at home? Right? You just go to a shop and you get it. So I came up with this really funny idea. I ran it by like a couple of friends. They were like, you know what? That's not a bad idea. Uh, I would buy it. And I was like, okay, bet if you'll buy it, I feel like a lot more people will buy it. So you obviously have your validation period of like 5, 6 people, and you're just like, okay, let's test it out. So during the time, man, everybody was like playing COD, they're playing Call of Duty, they're playing like all these video games. I personally never got into video games, so I was just like, how do I like optimize my time? Like I was bored. So I was like, let me see what it takes to start a company. This is my first like proper LLC that I've ever started up. And
Mm.
it's so easy. You'd be shocked. You'd be shocked how easy it is to start an LLC. All it takes is like 30 minutes of paperwork, 150, $160
Yeah.
payment, and then you're officially LLC. Very easy. So I didn't know that. I was like, man, this is so easy. So started that. And I was like, all right, now we got to think about how the heck, like, to do this whole operation. When you think about food, like a food business is very tough. Restaurant business in particular, obviously, is very tough. I think they have like a 1 in 3 chance of failure, in America
Mm.
or anywhere. Very tough business, restaurants. But e-commerce was popping off at the time. People were doing drop shipping. They were doing a lot of like, Amazon retail, they call it FBA. That was really popping off at the time. Like everyone you would see like on Instagram would be like, oh, this is how you make money real fast. So I was like, all right, e-commerce is what we're gonna do. We can only do it, right? We're in like a COVID time, like no one's really out there shopping in malls. Everything's through Amazon or through online purchases. So I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's make it e-commerce. Let's make it to where people have access to it pretty openly. Like I can ship this product pretty easily. It should be sustainable. It should be preserved. Like it shouldn't like go bad. Like it should be a non-perishable sort of thing. Although it is a perishable, but it takes really long to go bad. But essentially, like all that stuff, like the checklist came into mind, and I was like, all right, listen, we can make this happen. Like this is very doable. So I got on the drawing board. I was like, all right, like, we're gonna make this like company called Boa from Home, where you can buy a entire box of a kit. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know why that fell off. All right, is that better?
Yep.
Okay. And I was like, let me buy this entire like, let me do this thing where you can buy this case where it has all the things you need to make boba from home, and it has your boba tea, it has your straw, it has like a glass, it has a cup in there, it has like your tea that you need, the product actually itself, and the goal was to make it in less than 5 minutes.
Mm.
Um, and so we came up with this. They had this like tapioca pearls that are like pretty much ready in 5 minutes. We had sourced that from like Taiwan. We had to source like all the teas that we currently made at the time, all from Taiwan. The boba pearls were really hard to get, but we ended up getting them from a warehouse again in China, actually, not Taiwan, sorry. The teas were all from Taiwan, your Thai tea, your boba, your Earl Grey, your green tea, all the teas were from Thailand, and the pearls themselves were from China. And so we had that shipped to like a local warehouse. and the local we would buy from the local warehouse. So it would work pretty standard, like your any sort of chain. Like you go from retail, you buy, instead of buying retail, I just went straight to the source, bought from a warehouse. And then we initially started doing is packaging it from our apartment. So we had like I lived with my parents at the time, so we were like pretty much taking these orders from our online website, packing them at home, like literally shipping the label, like your typical, like, yeah, this guy ordered this, grab this, grab this, grab this. So we'd have like grab all these different things, put it into a box, close it, ship it. And our first order, I still have this video. It's so cool. It's like we literally had, when we launched, like I don't remember the exact day we launched. We like June something. But when we launched, like we had sold out in literally like 7 or 8 minutes. It was amazing because
That's crazy.
we had hyped this up for about 4 months. We're like, this is coming out, be excited. Everybody was really excited for it because like they were like, man, I've never seen anything concept like this. And everybody was obsessed with bubble tea at the time. So we were all like, everyone was so excited about it. I had a network of people that were like, promoting it on Instagram, promoting it here, there. But there were some random people that saw it on House Party. They were like, oh, I heard of you guys. You guys are boba era. That's crazy. I've heard you. I was like, what the heck? We didn't spend a dime on marketing, by the way. We didn't spend a single
That's
cent.
crazy.
It was all word of mouth. All word of mouth. So people were sharing on Instagram mostly. That was our like number one marketing channel. And then, bro, when we launched in June something, I think 2023, no, 2023, we literally like, we had all the pre-orders set up. We had about like, I think 400 kits ready to go.
Yeah.
And then when we like opened it up, the orders, like I'm telling you, like 6 or 7 minutes, it all sold out. It was so crazy. That was when I was like, oh, this is a real product. Like, people actually want to buy this. This is crazy. Like, you don't
My
really
God.
get the idea of like, oh, people are willing to, 400 or 500 people are willing to buy this product. We have an entire, I mean, maybe you can show it on the podcast. I'll send you the video or the picture later, but we had like these boxes set up in like my friend's apartment.
No
We
way.
spent the whole night packaging these orders, went to USPS the next day. First thing it opened, we bought like, we had like literally carts of boxes, and they were just looked at us like, yo, what the heck is this, dude? Really? And we had like 400 little boxes, like 9 by 7 or 9 by 8 boxes. I don't know the size, but we just gave it like, all right, we need to ship this out. And they were like, bro, but it was a
Bro.
crazy experience, man. It was so fun, dude. It was such a fun time. And then after that, after our initial order, people were like, well, when are you guys restocking? When are you guys restocking? That took a really long time, just unfortunately, because we were trying to like find a way to really, grow the business in a way. But also, when we first started, like we were buying smaller bulks. So, like we weren't like really buying that much product because we were like, yo, we don't know if this is going to sell out or not. So we'll start off on a smaller scale. But then once we found out like this is sold out real quick, that's when we tried to get like, bigger contracts with our manufacturing, with the people that were selling us the product. We're like, listen, we're going to buy big from you. So the whole like timeline took a little bit longer. So when we relaunched, I would say 6 months, 7 months later, we relaunched. We're like, oh, we're restocking. So unfortunately, it took a really long time. And that's why I think we lost that's a learning curve for me personally, because I was like, we took a really long time from, when we found out this idea was hot to when we restocked. If there's any way I can make that shorter, that would have been like such a game changer. But what we learned is like people like, there was competitors also coming in, which is crazy. We had competitors coming into the exact same thing where we're like, people were selling kits on Etsy and they were selling boba kits on, and I don't want to take credit for the idea because maybe they had the same idea, but bro, I'm telling you, is after we launched, they started doing the same thing, and I'm just like, that can't be a coincidence. Like, they definitely were like, so during that like 4 or 5 month period, I think it was, where we were out of product and we were trying to get like contracts from overseas and trying to see like how do we streamline manufacturing, how do we streamline the whole process, trying to get like a kitchen to like actually package the product and actually like do everything, and we wanted to be sort of hands off. That whole process took really long, and so a lot of competitors came in. They're selling it at a lower price point. We wanted to come in and how do we, differentiate ourselves from these competitors. That was a tough learn. But when we relaunched, like that line of time, we learned we didn't get as much orders as we first did, right? So we sort of overestimated what we were going to initially get. So we had a bunch of products, left over. We still had a good amount. Like we sold, I think through 200 to 300 in like 48 to 72 hours, I think. But then after that, it sort of declined. These are all the people that were waiting for it, like really, really long. And then they were just like, all right, we finally get to order it. Boom. But after that, we realized there's a lot of like 3, 4 other competitors out there doing the same thing. Okay, now we
Yeah.
have to like actually work. You know what I mean? Now we have to got to take this product from just your friends and your family and some other people that they may have reached out to, but how do we scale it to like an actual brand? And that was the toughest part. We realized obviously it takes a lot of resources, a lot of money. A lot of the people knew us. I would say like we did a lot of influencer marketing. So we would have to reach out to like big influencers are on Instagram already. We would send them a boba kit. Hey, we'll send you a free boba kit. All you have to do is just send a video, post a video of you, enjoying it, reviewing it, talking about it, and just bring awareness to the product itself. And that's what we got a lot. That's when we started getting traction again. We're like, okay, this is working. Like we would host like giveaways, we would host this, we would host that. One of our biggest like influencers at the time, I don't know if you know, like in the Muslim community, there's a girl named Zara. She's like an Afghani girl. She had at the time, I think like 1.2, 1.3 million followers. And she promoted a product on live. She was on Instagram live and she was promoting a product. And that's when we're like, well, crap, we were starting getting orders left and right. And we're just like, what's going on? We got a good burst there. But over time, it sort of plateaued. You start to realize we did know in the beginning, we definitely knew it was a niche, right? Like this product is not something that's going to make you a millionaire. It was just a fun thing to do. It's not something that's going to get you like sustainable wealth or like make you like the next, Elon Musk. Obviously, we all knew that, but it was just a fun thing. But we learned so much from it. But essentially, it sort of plateaued a little bit. Long story short, both of my co-founders, they both sort of moved out. They had personal things that they had to attend to. One got married, moved to Chicago. The other one moved to LA at the time. It was really hard to manage. So we ended up like selling it, just the intellectual property rights. So Boba Era, Boba from Home, all that is gone. And so now what we do we don't really do anything with the product itself. Now it is sort of like a thing in the past, but it's definitely something that we learned a lot from. Very interesting journey. We still have the Instagram handle, so I could promote. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't take that. But, yeah, but it's been a fun journey, man. I've learned so much from it on the business side of how to start a brand, whether it's e-commerce or any brand. It all really takes the same scheme. Blueprint is the same. It's just depending on what business you're in, it's all different. But yeah, from there, man, that was sort of like the journey of Boba Era / Boba from Home. Fun one for sure. I wish it would last longer, but we all knew it was due time. Like we knew it was like, okay, this is not something that we could kind of grow. And what's crazy is one of the craziest things to this day when I go to Costco. Costco is one of the biggest, obviously, the biggest retailers in the world.
Yeah.
You go to Costco, you literally see a boba kit called Instant Boba. And it's exactly the same concept of what I started in 2023. And I'm just like,
crazy.
I'm like, bro, you're telling me this could have been us, bro. So like, yeah, like it's crazy, man. It's crazy. And I'm like, I think about it all the time when I go to Costco. I'm just like, are you kidding me right now? I see it in Walmart. I see it in Costco. I see it in all these bigger retailers. I'm like, this concept is literally what. Obviously, I don't want to say I started, but like, I thought of this idea, and and I think to this day, if I really put a lot more resource and thought into it, I feel like I could have gotten it into Costco and Walmart. But somebody else did, and good for them. But it was a good journey. It was a good journey.
So you were just like this bit close, but like you said, like you learned a ton, and I think that's the biggest thing, man. As long as you learn something from it and you enjoyed the overall process, there shouldn't be any regrets.
It was a great process, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a great process for sure.
So you went from there, and then you transitioned to another business, another industry. Can we touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure, man. So like a couple of years like later, I had this opportunity to team up with one of my really good friends who had been running a photo booth business in the wedding industry. He was doing weddings, he was doing like other like events, small time graduations, birthday parties, things like that. But he had a photo booth business going, and he is like, hey, you want to hop onto this this new trend? Like all it takes is a one-time investment of like a 360 photo booth, which at the time was like really popping off. What we do is like essentially all we have to do is we first, in order to gain clients, you sort of team up with venues, reach out to wedding coordinators, all that. And then what we could do is a one-time investment of like, $3,000. People are paying like $1,500, $1,000, $1,500 for a 4-hour rental of this thing. And so you can make your money back in like 3 events. Sounds pretty interesting. Tell me more.
Tell me more.
So like you really introduced me to that idea because he had been running it. He's been really good like locally, like in terms of like friends and family. He was doing a lot of the photo booth stuff for them, and it's a need, bro. Everyone's getting married, bro, and everybody wants a photo booth. So we were like, I was like, yeah, I'm interested. So we teamed up. We bought this like 360 photo booth rig. It was like, it's like I'm sure you've seen it at weddings. Like, there's no way you haven't at this point, but essentially it's just like a
Yeah.
platform you get on, and there's a 360 booth that just goes like, doot. But essentially you take that, you rent it out to clients of people that are getting married and they want that at their wedding. You rent it out to the clients. The going cost was about $1,500 at the time for a 4 hour rental, all inclusive. Get it at your rent. Didn't cost $3,000, man. So you're making your money back in 2 days, on two events. So after that, it's all strictly profit, right? There's no overhead. Like the only thing that you're gonna get, the only thing you're gonna profit or not, the only thing you're gonna really lose money on, well, not lose money, but the cost of your business is just subscription that's on your iPhone that runs the program, and then any overhead that you would have to pay to like venues or coordinators that reach out to you, and then just kind of like the referral fee, sort of like that. But all that, I mean, I would say 90% profit, 10% cost, right? So I was like, yo, this
Not
is this is
bad.
a good, this is a good business. Like you can make a lot of side income from this. So we grew that business. Like we were getting a good amount of clients. Like we went to trade shows. We went to like we reached out to a bunch of venues who were trying to um team up with us and trying to be like, hey, like you be our person for photo booth, right? We're running photo booth and a 360 booth inside. It's like, all right, let's do it. And so we were doing like, I would say like every week. I was doing a 9 to 5, so like obviously no one gets married on the weekdays either. So it's more of a weekend thing. You're doing weekends like almost 3 times a month, 4 times a month, 5 times a month. Sometimes in the busy season we were getting real busy. Like every weekend we're booked up, and we're trying to get like a bunch of clients. We're trying to get more and more clients. Realize like, bro, this a lot, like it's a lot of work for us to do because we have to actually go there and manage it. And our weekends were kind of like going down the drain. You didn't really have time to like hang with friends or stuff on the weekends. Yeah, you typically do. Uh, so like essentially we liked it though. I mean, I personally liked it. I got to meet new people. We were at like random weddings. We were at some of friends' weddings too, but we were at like random weddings, meeting new people, talking to random free food, saying less. I was just me and my homie as well. So it was just me and my friend running the food together. So we were enjoying our time. It was hella fun, dude. It was so much fun. And then realized, man, this is a lot of work. Like this is a lot of work. We wanted to really graduate into like being a hands-off business and try to become like all in one under one umbrella and sort of
Mm.
become like the guys at the top and then hire people to kind of go to these events, hire employees essentially long term. Uh, and then, when we got to that point where we were like, we were tired, we had actually made an investment to buy another photo booth. It was like, at the time, it's called like a Vogue photo booth. In the business, a lot of people like were like, this is like so exotic. This is the rich people thing. You know what I mean? Like people, this is a $3,000 cost for people to have this at their wedding. So we were like, people are paying three grand for this like photo booth, which was
My
like
God.
the massive 9 by 16 backdrop essentially, and
Hmm.
you're inside of this platform, and you have this like plexiglass in the front, and you can put anything on it. Some people put the Vogue magazine, Wedding of the Year. It's like a really cool thing to have at a wedding, like very like stands out, and you take photos in it. Such a photo booth. Uh, but this was a very niche thing, and people wanted this, and like there was a really high end company out there called Posh Decor. They're really well known across America. But if you have like any like celebrity wedding, these are the people that they hire. So what we found was like people were willing to spend like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on this booth, which you like buy and you can make essentially. It's crazy how much people spend on weddings. That's the first takeaway that I
My
got from it.
God.
And so then I was like, all right, man, we got to get into this. So we actually invested in that. Unfortunately, that didn't work out because it was just too big of a hassle to carry around. It was a massive, like 9 foot by 16 foot plexiglass. And we'd have to rent out like an entire semi truck essentially to transport this thing. It was just
Mm.
a pain. It was just a pain in the butt. Unless you're doing this on a full scale and you have a full other decor company already running, it was very unsustainable for us. So we actually lost money on that. Unfortunately, we sold it. We sold that at a loss, but we sold it to like someone else personally. And then they were just like, all right, we'll take it off your hands. We're like, thank you, bro. Because we're spending like hella money on storage every month for this thing. We're like,
Mm.
all right, this is not sustainable. Like, let's get rid of this. Got rid of it. But then we continue with the 360 and the photo booth, and we really wanted to grow it. Honestly, we had a bunch of ambitions, and I mentioned this on the pre-call. It was like we were trying to really get to like a point where we were trying to really be hands off completely. Um, as that happened, obviously, personal life got in the way. I got married recently, in December. So,
Congratulations.
but appreciate it. So before then, I realized, way before that, that I'm gonna have to end up moving for my wife's job. So I was like, you know what, I won't be able to like grow this thing with you, unfortunately. Like we have to sort of either I'm gonna be like, you know, sell my share, or we can sell both of our shares and like become like, go into something else or whatever you want to do with it. But unfortunately, I won't be able to grow it in Dallas because it really is a hands-on business. So I was like, I'm gonna be moving in the next 4 or 5 months. So we sort of like sunsetted that a little bit. But we're still, honestly, it's still there. We haven't sold it. We haven't, sold the business at all, but I think there's still a lot of opportunity. Unfortunately, I'm like 5 hours away from Dallas now. So, I can't really be there for like events or doing other, marketing things that we usually go to. Like we go to a bunch of trade shows. We go and market at like, this downtown area. People pay like $5 to go around a booth for it, all that kind of stuff. We like promote it in various different ways, but it's very hands-on. So you have to be there. You can't really do it outside of that. And we didn't find any good employees that could run it outside of us. So we're like, yeah, this is gonna be tough too. So that's where we're at right now with that business. Is like very kind of sort of like sunsetted a little bit. But if I'm in temporarily in a very rural city now, but I'll be back in Dallas in hopefully a year, 2 years. So we'll see what happens in 2 years. Right now it's sort of that's what happened. But we had so much fun with that too, man. It was hilarious. It was just nonstop fun. When you start a business with a friend, it's just hilarious. You have such a good time.
Dude, man, honestly, it's crazy. It's like you've just done gone from business to business, and then on top of that, like you're like into healthcare too, and it's just like, man, I feel like I could talk to you for a long time about all this, but
But I could yap for a long
let's
time though, but we don't want to do that.
seriously, like, so okay, so now so you said, all right, so healthcare isn't for me as a provider. Then you touched on it a little bit. Now you do consulting, and what I want to talk to you about is what is the future of healthcare looking like, especially in particular medicine, because dentistry is a whole different beast. I know, like for us, like they tried getting like DSOs are still kind of prevalent, but they're starting to notice that like the margins aren't as good as they once thought, like it is in medicine. So I'd love to hear your perspective, your business perspective on that, and then what you see as a consultant.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So the biggest thing right now that I see from the work I do is consolidation. Like, as we all know, healthcare is very fragmented, right? When I
Mhm.
say fragmented, as a listener who may not know anything about healthcare, like doesn't know the business side of healthcare, doesn't know, not really familiar with it, which there's a lot of people like that. What I mean by fragmented is when you go as a patient, when you go to the hospital or you go to the clinic, everything is sort of outsourced, right? You go in, you tell the doctor you have a problem, he orders an MRI. Some MRIs are in-house. Some of them, they give you a doctor's order to do the MRI outside of the place. That all has a referral fee attached to it. And then when you get the MRI done, you have to come back to the doctor's office and then do an appointment with them. And then you have to be like, oh, okay, and now I have to do labs or something. Now your labs is outsourced. You're doing somewhere else. And even if it's in-house, most of the time it's processed out of like outside of the actual facility. So everything is like separated, man. Like everything and then that's just from what you see. On the other side, when you talk about payers, insurance companies, you see that is like a whole nother beast. Like from what you don't see as a patient, which I was exposed to as working in the field, is like healthcare providers are one end of the story, and then payers are the other end of the stories. And your payers are your insurance companies, United Healthcare's, your Humana's, your Aetna's, your all these Blue Cross Blue Shield, all these big
Yeah.
insurances. There's a ton of them. What I've learned, bro, they run healthcare. Like insurance
Yeah, they really
companies
do.
run healthcare for any person, not just the patient, but also the providers, right? Because you're running contracts with the providers to be like, okay, I'm going to pay you out for this CPT code to do. They use this X amount, X amount. So everything's run to the payers. And so what you realize is when you go through payers, everything becomes fragmented because they work with a bunch of other people, right? So you're not the only doctors or you're not the only hospital that's working with these insurance companies. Most of the time, you're working with like millions other clients. They have a million other people that they're working with. So as a patient, that cost is added up to you. That's why healthcare is so darn expensive in America, is because you are pretty much paying the cost of every fragmented piece of healthcare,
Mm.
from your lab orders to your X-rays to your MRIs to billing, all the way up to billing, which you're like, why the hell am I paying for billing? Well, you are. So that's why it's so freaking expensive, because where everything is outsourced and everything collects a profit, right? It's like, for example, you buy something at the grocery store, that's marked up from the warehouse, right? That's marked up. If you buy it from the warehouse, you can buy it cheaper. But that warehouse is also marked up from the manufacturer. So everything's marked up. You're getting like an insanely marked up product, but that's the norm. You can't just that's just normal, because you can't go straight to the manufacturer. So what's happening in healthcare is people are realizing how to fix healthcare is to become more consolidated, bring everything sort of in-house, lower the cost exponentially to the patient, and bring in more money to the provider. So both people are happy, right? It's a win-win, and it's not as easier said than done for sure. But what we essentially do for work, one of the jobs I do for work is, and this is, if you talk to any clinical provider, they have a love-hate relationship. Some say they love it, some say they hate consolidation. But because what happens is, when you look at how it works, you have a private equity firm that'll come in. That private equity firm could be either focused in healthcare, 100%, and all their investment in their entire portfolio is healthcare, or you could have a company that's coming in and 5% of their portfolio is healthcare. So you just don't know. But the people that have, very good extensive experience in the healthcare investments, they do it well, and they do it really well. And they know how to streamline everything. They get in there, they break down the X's and O's, and they're like, okay, you need to do this, do this, do that. And so what you're running is a really, efficient operation. But the problem is the PE firms that come in and they have no idea of how to run a healthcare business.
Yeah.
They just have a bunch of money to spend. So that's where we come in. That's where we come in. We have a great amount of healthcare experience, and they know that their weakness is that they don't have healthcare experience. So they're like, hey, I want to invest in a healthcare company A. I don't know if it's a good investment. Will you be able to tell me if it's a good investment? So we come in, we do a bunch of diligence work for the come get into their financials, get into how their patient volumes looking, all that boring stuff, what their provider rates are, everything, and then we say, hey, we create a kind of like a pro forma for the client, saying in year 1, this is what you can expect. In year 2, this is what you can expect. In year 3, so on and so forth. We usually do a 3-year pro forma. So now the PE, the people that's looking to invest in this healthcare company per se, they now have an idea, okay, I'm going to make this much money. Is this investment worth it or not? That's pretty much what we answer. And so what we learn is, a lot of these PE firms, they're going to make a ton of money from consolidating if they do it right. And not only the PE firms, but the doctors will make a lot more money. The nurses will make a lot more money. Everyone in the entire, process will make a lot of money. Payers may lose out on a little bit. That's what we realize, but it's starting to become like a payers less world now in healthcare, because patients are getting a lot more education about what to pay for. Very much transparency. Like, for example, pharmaceuticals and drugs, right? You never knew like what the cost of insulin was back in the day, because you just have insurance pay for it, right? But now these insurance are getting cheaper and cheaper by the day. They refuse to pay for a lot more things they used to pay for, because everything is just getting expensive. It's just easy as that. And so they're refusing to pay for your big drugs, your metformin, your insulin, your all these like diabetic drugs that are super expensive. And that's why Mark Cuban just came out with a company called Drugs Plus, which is a super dope, super amazing company, man. This guy is a genius, but I love him. But he's literally like, his company pretty much takes out the middleman from pharmaceuticals. They go straight to the manufacturer. So essentially they're having, I'm having some internet issues. You still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. But yeah, essentially what he did was take the middleman out and reduce the cost for the patient. Like, I mean, depends on what drug you're buying, but almost like 50%, right? Across the board. And so that was just a wild concept, because we're just like overly paying for every drug possible. And insurance companies were putting that bill essentially, because they were like, we have to sort of pay for this. Really. So they were literally like so confused. Now a lot of the pharmaceutical companies are not catching on. They're reducing, they're reducing their prices a lot. But that's why healthcare in America is so expensive. You're just paying a crap ton of overcharge and upcharges for every single like aspect of the field. So consolidation is probably the biggest thing.
All right, so you were talking about the payers world and like how benefits are decreasing for the payer, but they're increasing for the docs and the companies and the PE and all that.
Yeah, man. So I was talking about the trends. Yeah, there's trends of what healthcare is going as a very high level in a very high level scenario, right? Like you're looking at a lot of these providers who are coming in or these payers who are coming in and increasing the cost of everything, like how much we would pay, or sorry, decreasing the payout to the doctors. So now the doctors are not happy. And then, but they're also reducing a lot of the coverages for the patient. So now the patient is not covered when he goes to the doctor for XYZ, you name it, like various different things. But if you look at how healthcare can be improved, it's a lot of reducing the middleman, because there's a middleman for everything in healthcare. There's a middleman for every procedure you do in healthcare. There's a middleman for every every from all the way from like drugs to going to get an MRI. There's a middleman for everything. So then you're getting an upcharge for every single concept and every single point of the patient's care. So when you look at the bill as a patient, you're like, this is ridiculous. Like I don't. If you go to like Norway, for example, they're paying 1/4 of that cost for the same procedures you're doing, and how they're doing it. That's a different political question, but the concept of Medicare for all, where everyone's sort of footing the bill. You can argue that that's not the most fair concept, or that's something that you like to do, but that's just a personal thing. But in America, how it works is that everyone's just upcharging. Every corporation is just upcharging the person downstairs, and so you end up footing the bill for like 15 different upcharges. And so like now you're cooked. You're like, oh, what the heck is this, man? This is ridiculous. So how do we make healthcare in America cheaper? We reduce the middleman in every scenario, or as many scenarios
Yeah.
as you possibly can. So that's what consolidation does. It really just takes out the middleman in your billing. It takes out the middleman in any everyday operations. If you bring MRIs in-house, for example, as a big healthcare operating system, like one of the biggest ones in Texas is Baylor Scott and White. They're a massive accountable care organization. And so what they do essentially is under one roof, you can do your labs, you can do your MRIs, you can do everything all under one roof, under the Baylor Scott and White roof. And essentially it's run as sort of like a all-in-one hospital. And that's where we're trending towards now, because what happens is when you run as an ACO, you have a lot more purchasing power. A lot of more purchasing power comes with cheaper rates, right? Cheaper, it costs a lot cheaper. I mean, these insurance companies are giving you a way better rate for everything because you have a lot more purchases. You're bringing a lot more revenue to them personally, right? So you have a lot more purchasing power because you're bringing in a lot more volume, and then you also have a bunch of patients that are already in the network. So if you, for example, you're needing a cardiologist, you're like, instead of going to go get a referral, which we did back in the day, which I find back in the a lot of people still do this, but you get a referral for a physician or a cardiologist, and then you go to a cardiologist, you have to show them that referral. It has to go through the entire portal of referral systems. And then you're like, okay, now I can accept to see you as a patient. That was how it was done. Now what we're starting to see is that everything's done in-house. So if you go for example, a hospital called Baylor, you'll see like everything is like under one roof. If you need to go see a cardiologist, just go upstairs and you can go visit a cardiologist upstairs. Don't need to do any additional paperwork. Don't need to send out a referral. Don't need to do anything. And so like what we're seeing now is a lot more streamlined healthcare. And this is still such a long way to go in America. Don't get me wrong. We're still new at this. But now with technology as well, and it's becoming a lot easier because you as a patient can see transparency between what you're paying and what you're like. A lot more patients, what we've realized is, are becoming a lot more education, or they're becoming a lot more aware of what they're paying in healthcare. Right. Back in the day, you just show an insurance card, you'd say, you're like, all right, insurance is taking care of it, whatever. I don't really care for what I have to pay. You just pay like a copay, or, worry about your deductible, whatever. Now, a lot more people are getting more active. They're getting more proactive. Hey, what am I doing? Do I really need this procedure? There's a lot of wasted stuff in healthcare. That's also, the question of why is healthcare in America so expensive? It's so complex. And I'm not answering not even 1% of it by, explaining this to you. There's so many different facets of healthcare that can be reduced. Like we spend so much on just unnecessary like
Correct.
utilization. You don't need an MRI every time have like a backache.
No.
Like you don't, so like these doctors, what they're doing, they're really programmed. It's not the doctor's fault because that's what they're trained to do. You're not, you don't need an MRI for every single like issue that you have. For example, if you carefully look at how Norway does it, how Finland and all these some of these European countries who are known for very efficient healthcare, you don't get these procedures done. It takes a really long time to actually need one. Like you need to be at a severe case of like spinal spinal dysfunction or something like that in order to get an MRI there. They don't just like order MRIs because they're expensive. MRIs are expensive as hell. And so if you look at some of these doctors that do it here, they just order it. Hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me just order an MRI and figure it out. Like that's super expensive. So like people don't realize like, and this is not just the doctor's fault because sometimes the patient will like demand it. They'll be like, "Oh, I need to get an MRI. I don't care." So what we need to do as a whole is decrease utilization, like insane amount of utilization. That if you look some of this research that's out, like we spend like per capita in America, we spend like 8 times per capita than what like Europe, some of these European countries spend, which is wild. It's just crazy like how inefficient our healthcare system is, but there's good coming out of it, man. Like the technology, for example, with AI and everything coming in, like, from a business standpoint, if you're trying to run a hospital with the best margins, you have a lot more resources for you right now than you did ever. So like, from EHR technology has become so like insane now. Like you can literally have like for example, like the other day we just did a case for a client who onboarded this AI like scribe, and so that eliminates like the hassle of trying to make notes and all that because the AI does it for you while you're in the room, and then you can see like almost 20 more patients a day because of it. So they're making a lot more money that way from having a lot more volume to just streamline stuff. This is a small example, but all the way from the back end to like if you're aware of RCM and how billing works in the medical system, it's a pain in the butt. It's a pain in the butt how RCM works. So RCM is just revenue cycle management. So from when when the provider sees you to how they're billed, because that's how pretty much payers get or doctors get paid, is they have to go through like what we call an RCM cycle. You put the CPT codes in, you submit it to the insurance company. The insurance company then looks at it, reviews it, but everything has to be like 100% correct, or else you're not going to get reimbursed for a lot of this stuff. So the whole system is very complicated. I'm not going to get into it, but essentially, it's very ticky tacky, and so human error is massive in that whole field. So if you're, what we currently do is all humans go in and there's billers and coders. These are actual jobs, full-time jobs that people do. Like billers and coders, their whole job is to just straight bill and code and go to the computer and just write down all the CPT codes they were doing, and then they submit it to the insurance. And then so human error plays a big thing in a lot of reimbursements getting declined and doctors not getting paid, hospitals not getting paid. So what AI does is pretty much sort of eliminate that, not 100%, but pretty good amount. AI will be pretty like, I wouldn't say like, I would probably say 80% better than humans doing it. So what we're seeing now is a lot of these big companies, they want to do that. It's very expensive to onboard, but your payout is pretty fast because, unfortunately, from a job perspective, these billers and coders, unfortunately, may be losing their jobs. But, from a business perspective, it streamlines a lot of things, reduces your costs, and it increases your reimbursements like instantly. We're seeing a lot of technology play into role here, and especially with the transformation of AI. Man, we're going to see a lot of better stuff, but we just have to implement it. And obviously, regulations and healthcare play a big thing. Like political America, like has to approve all this stuff because healthcare is very regulated here. So it has to be approved from the higher ups, presidents, and all that before we can even start doing a lot of this stuff. But working in the healthcare field, man, you notice there's a lot of potential, and hopefully we get to see it in our lifetime, but there's a lot of potential for sure.
There definitely is, man. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but like at Penn State, my entire degree was in healthcare, like administration and business. So it's just like, I understand all of it. I'm like, everything you've talked about, I'm like, man, this is a flashback to college, like 2.0.
Yeah.
It's funny.
No, straight up,
But
bro.
it's wild. Like we spend I think last time I checked, it was like 16 or 17% of our gross domestic product on healthcare. And
Yeah,
most European
17.
countries are like
Yeah.
4%. So we're
Yep.
almost
Yep.
triple or like quadruple what they're, it's absolutely inane. Like, I think
It's
we
insane.
really, really do waste a lot of the money on inefficient processes and products, and it has to like be more efficient. That's the only way we get better. Whether that's training for doctors, training for administrators, it could be a whole slew of things. But the issue is it's just waste, unfortunately, and that's where tax dollars go, and that's why it's so expensive overall. You know,
Yeah, man, it's a lot. I mean, there's a lot good too, man. Like, for example, like,
a lot of good though too.
people always hate on America, for being crap in healthcare. But it's true. I mean, it's true. Like overall, we're trash. But there's a lot of good things happening. Like, for example, you wouldn't know that America has the highest survival rate of cancer, like breast cancer, liver cancer. Like people from all over the world come to America to have treatment for cancer. So like, we're not the worst at everything. Like we're doing something right there. There's a lot of stats here that there's a lot of stats saying that like America's bad in a lot of, and they're bad in a lot of different categories. We're like the worst in diabetes, or like the worst in various, like we rank last among all these different things. But the good things is, with what we see like now with all the technology coming out and everything that you see from like either from a patient perspective or even from an outside perspective, like it's starting to get better. Like it's starting to get better. Like we're not utilizing as much as we did back in the day. Like before COVID, for example, was a big time where during COVID, we saw a huge drop off just because of the lack of patients. But now we're starting to see a little bit of a decline. Still really early to tell, but I'm really excited to see what happens in the next few years
Yeah,
with all this consolidation. But you'll probably see like, you know, you'll probably see 5 or 10, 15 different companies in America run the entire healthcare system. So
yeah, and
for
maybe
sure.
that's a good thing. Only time will tell. We have no idea.
That's
No
very,
idea.
yeah, very two-faced, man. There are a lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it. You talk to providers that love it, talk to providers that hated it because they come in and change everything. Yeah, UHC and B is a big one because they're probably like the biggest in America right now. United
Yeah.
Healthcare, who, they run Optum, they run their entire like everything in-house. Um,
Mm,
they're like the conglomerates right now of healthcare. So it's really
healthcare.
crazy to see. But we're trying to break that up. I mean, the ideal, and in the ideal scenario, you don't have 10 or 15 big conglomerates because then they get to run everything and price everything how they want it. But hopefully with the right regulations, it works out. But yeah, very interesting to see, man.
Very interesting. Okay, so let's move on to the next section. So you have a major in kinesiology from Penn State. So I'm under the impression that you're still very much into athletics, like you were back in college. So you talk to me, like, how have you stayed fit? Like, do you meditate? Do you still lift? Do you stretch, yoga? Like, what do you do? Like, what keeps you sane? Like, you do all these businesses, you do this, your job and healthcare consulting. Like, what do you do that kind of keeps you fit and like healthy?
Oh man, that's a good question. To be honest, man, I would say the last few months I haven't been doing anything really. I've been terrible. I need to be better. But before that, man, just quality athletics, like just playing basketball with the homies, lifting 2, 3 times a week. Try to get my diet better, but could be better there. But you know me, I've never been good with diet, bro. Um, for me personally, I'm always been like an advocate of healthcare and being like in a good state, like at least not like obese or not like underweight or like just being in an area where you're healthy. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not I haven't got to the area where like I'm like the fittest I've ever been in my life. Personally, I haven't because life, but I need to get back there personally. So in terms of my body, I still don't think like I'm the worst. Like I'm definitely still take care of like, the occasional. I don't go out and eat out every day. Like I just try to eat healthy as possible. I'll have to,
Mm.
cheat meal here and there, but I think the body is a very interesting question because I'm like either my metabolism's got me done real well in the last like 6, 7 months. I haven't gone fat, but I haven't really worked out. But I think it's just being aware, honestly, just being aware of what you're eating, just stuff like that. But I'm gonna go back to the gym though next year. And I say
I
this year.
love it.
This year I'll be back and see me about 6 months. You'll look about a 6 month transformation. But
Dude, I love it. I love it.
I'll always love the gym, bro. Life is tough right now. I'm
I
gonna
mean, that's all we did, bro, in college. So we lift, ate,
yeah,
and
bro.
studied. That's all we did.
I know, bro. You
So
get out.
it's different.
It's definitely different. I mean, personally, in this current space right now, it's like a lot. I'm trying to adjust to like a new place, adjust to married life, do a lot of that. But hopefully, get back in the gym as soon as I can.
So, question for you, like kinesiology. I know you didn't really pursue it crazy heavy, but do you think that's like affected the way that you've been able to like modify your diet and like go on and off these cycles and
Absolutely,
such like that?
100%, no doubt about it. Like,
Because I feel like you know all the hacks. Like you know when to eat, when not to eat. You know how to stretch. You know how to lift. Like so you can easily transform yourself up and down without any issues. So like talk to me a little bit about that.
no, 100%, man. Like, no doubt about it. Like I think 6, 7 months of not working out, like most people would gain a ton of weight. I've stayed the same weight, but I haven't been in the gym or like I haven't like, done anything that's like crazy up in the past, like I would say like 6, 7 months. So what it has done is really just having the knowledge of like, for example, like, not eating past a certain hour or like
Mhm.
trying to be more cognizant of uh just exercise, but that doesn't mean lifting, right? Lifting it means being more active, walking around, getting up. I have a work from home job, bro. So I have the most terrible like excuse to be like sitting down at work and sitting, at my house on my desk for 8 hours a day. Um, but I don't have a job where I have to stay on my desk for 8 hours a day. I get up and move around. I go like, midday, I'll just go and do some errands and stuff and come back, and just stay active. But no, I think kinesiology in terms of education has helped me for sure with like when I get back in the gym or when I'm in the gym, like I know what to do. I know how to pre-warm up. Like I've had gym partners over the past 2 years that like I've taught a ton of to like how to lift, what workouts to do, how to do them. Um, there's a lot of educational aspects that definitely taught me like kinesiology and just not even kinesiology, but just, growing, like literally growing at Penn State, for example, learning from other people as well, on how to do that kind of stuff. And then, for example, when you have injuries and stuff, like how to rehab those things and stuff like that. So kinesiology definitely played a big part for sure, in my personality,
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
makes sense. I mean, I don't know if you remember, you helped me fix my squat form, and then I got bad again, and then I fixed it again. So I'm like, man, Ralph was right. But no, now it's played a big difference. So no, I appreciate that. And no, I think you're right. So anything else you'd like to add on like body like wise? I don't know if that's kind of where your journey's ended or any like
Nah,
advice
man,
for
no.
people.
Absolutely, man. I can't be the one telling people advice on how to hit the gym because I haven't hit the gym in like I said, so long. But man, the body is so important, dude. So damn important. I can't even stress that enough. It's so obvious. But like, especially if you have a work from home job, man, like literally it's so easy to
Yeah.
just get out of focus and just being like, oh, F it. Like I'm just gonna start doing this and start doing that. And like, your metabolism can only hold you for so long. You literally like without being able to just like do everyday tasks. Like for example, like a week, literally a week before my wedding, I had threw my back out, like just randomly, like
Oh,
just like literally nothing, like just a freak accident. And I during that time, man, it was the most painful like I've ever. This is the most pain like I've felt in a long time. And I don't know if it was age, if it was just the sedentary lifestyle that caught up to me for like the last few months, wedding planning and doing all this other stuff. Um, I was just like, bro, it just like completely went on. And I just like had so much pain in my back. It took me like a couple of days to recover. But I didn't realize in those couple of days, man, I was just like, man, just mobility, just having the option to move around whenever you want is so taken for granted, dude. I was struggling. I couldn't even walk. I couldn't even get up. I couldn't
jeez.
even walk. It was terrible. And I was just like not bedridden, but I was just like, struggling to walk just like from across one house, across my like house, for example. Getting up was like a whole like 6 step process. Yeah,
Mm.
so the body, man, is so important, bro. I literally like that's when I realized like this is crazy. Like I got to get back in the gym. I got to start exercising now again. I got to get back into it because the age is catching up to me, man. I'm 30 now, dude.
That's fair.
Crazy.
That's fair. That's fair.
But
So, okay, last part about body, but if there's two pieces of advice as a kinesiology foundation guy, like if someone does a sedentary job, what are two pieces of advice you have for them to like stay, in shape or be on their healthy sides, I guess?
first thing is being cognizant, man. Like cognizance, like for sure, like being aware of how sedentary and how or slash how active or not active you are. For me, I've always been cognizant of it. Like I'm literally my worst, critic. I'm like, this is terrible. Like I've been at my desk for 8 hours a day. I need to go get up. I need to do something. I need to like physically move. Like I have that. that mental awareness of it. A lot of people like just remove that completely from their aspect. You have a lot of different. I mean, there's a lot of distractions in life. Like I just got married. Like that's a massive distraction in terms of being able to achieve the body goals that you want, right? Not a distraction
Yeah.
in life, but just like if you have a goal like to, build a six pack, very basic, but like very, shred, you want to shred as much fat as you can. Like that takes a commitment, dude. Like you gotta be, unless you have the genetics of like a freaking Hercules, like you're gonna be you gotta focus on that. And you can't make that just a bypass thing. But being aware of where you are physically and where you want to be is definitely the most important thing. I know for sure I'm not where I want to be at. And I know for sure this is probably the most body fat I've had in the past, like, 3 to 5 years. So, um, is definitely something that I'm aware of. So awareness for sure, number one. Number two, I think, honestly, it's a lot of like be going out of your way to learn about, like just fitness. I mean, gym is just one thing. Just gym, they say like nutrition is like 80% of the gym, right? Essentially, you're not going to gain anything, just from going to the gym and not really eating well. So just educational wise, like knowing what to eat, how to eat. You can obviously have your cheat meals or whatever you can have and eat whatever you want to eat. Really, it's all about moderation at the end of the day. Like, you're here for a good time. And people say this all the time, you're here for a good time and a long time. Like, yeah, you don't want to be eating chicken and rice every single day for 5 days a week and have one cheat meal. Like, sure, you can eat whatever you want, but as long as it's in moderation, that's how I live by. As long as you hit the gym, as long as you're doing your exercise, as long as you're getting that cardio in. I think, for me personally, like diet food, I love food so much. So I'm just like, I can't be, nor am I that person to be on like a meal prep plan that's going to be eating chicken and rice every day for 5 days. And people love that. That's how you achieve goals at a faster level, sure. But I'm like, for me personally, like, as long as I am active and I go to the gym and like I don't eat like crap every single day, you should be able to eat what you want in moderation. That's all it is. And,
Yeah.
and that's just my personal thing. But if you're like overweight and you're overweight, like obviously you can't do that. You need to buckle up and get right, and you need to sacrifice a lot of stuff you've been thinking of. But for me personally, I'm just like, listen, I'm not going to eat like burgers every day. Nor am I eating burgers every day. I know my lifestyle. I know like I'm not smart. My biggest thing is sugar, bro. Like I literally have a kryptonite. That's my kryptonite right there. So like I know like I'm not consuming a lot of sugar. I'm not consuming a lot of sugar. Like that's something that's the biggest thing. Like, I don't eat fatty foods. Like I don't eat burgers like every day. I don't eat like crap like whatever you want to call like all this processed food. I don't really do that. So the biggest thing for me is like I love candy. So I'm like shit. I gotta limit candy, for example, or like something like that. So just awareness and education. I would say two biggest things for sure.
Basically, if I give you a Snickers bar, I could get you to do anything.
No, 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 no. Depends on what candy you talk about. Snickers ain't gonna get me do nothing. I'm more of a sour candy like gummy worms type of guy. So,
Oh, that's
um,
right. Sour Patches. I have to
yeah,
remember
I'm
those.
like I'm like DK Metcalf. You ever seen DK Metcalf is?
He's a basketball player, I think.
No, he's a football player. He's a massive
Football
football
player.
player. Dude is a tank. Like he's a
Okay.
specimen. He's a different specimen. Just Google him. He's just crazy. And he said
Okay.
all he does is he eats like 4 bags of candy a day. And I'm just like,
That's insane. That
if
blows my
you
mind.
look at his physique, you'll be
Yeah.
mind blown. The dude
Okay.
is
I will.
shredded. He's like
Uh,
shredded. He's like 6'4", like 280, pure muscle. And I'm
Wow.
like, he did his interview. He's like, yeah, I eat like 4 bags of candy a day.
That's insane. I wonder how his teeth are.
His teeth are fine, bro. I'm sure he, doesn't look
That's
like his teeth are fine.
crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah, I'm the exact opposite of you. Like I meal prep and like I'm like so
Yeah, no,
particular.
no. I
But
mean, and
it's
that's
just
a
a different
respect.
vibe.
That's a respect, and
Different.
that's a kind of like discipline that dude. There's so much respect for that. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, if you could do that mentally, bro, amazing. But one thing about health, man, but one thing about like people that are at the gym, like they lose a lot of motivation early on because they're like, man, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. And there's a lot of rules to follow, and like what you see is that most people are not sustainable. They're out the gym in
No.
2 months. They're out the gym in three
Yeah, they're
months.
out.
And so like you need to make a sustainable lifestyle that you could do. You don't have to meal prep
Yeah.
every day, but as long as you like commit, start at 45 minutes, start with an hour at the gym, do this, do that, like
Yeah.
eliminate the small things. Depends on where you are currently and where you want to be, but it all depends. But yeah, people can
Yeah.
do meal prep. That's amazing, man. Shout out to you. More power. Love that.
It's different. I mean, for me, I think it started in college a little bit before, and I
You
just
did,
kept up
meal
with
prep
it.
in college. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You were on that shit
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
it started like almost a decade ago, so it's been going for about a decade. So
You
it's
got that
good. I mean,
you got that
obviously,
program, bro.
I got that program, baby.
You got
But
that
you know,
program,
all of us
boy.
are different. All of us are different. But no, to say like I don't cheat, I have cheat meals, absolutely I do. Like, you need to, because if you don't, then it gets boring. So, but most of the day, it's like it's a lot of discipline. And most days, I was talking to Alex about this yesterday. It's like you need to just stay consistent with it. And the more consistent you are, the more it just becomes a part of you. And then, those couple of months become years, and those years become decades. And it just becomes like, hey, this is what I do no matter what, even if I'm not motivated. So
For
everyone
sure.
has their ups and downs.
For sure. I
But
mean,
all
to
right,
make it
Ralph.
into habit, it takes a while. For sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Ralph. So last part of the podcast, the roots. So technically, by background, your parents, they're Indians and you're Gujarati technically. So, but you
No, I'm from
lived and grew
Hyderabad.
up
I'm from
mainly
Hyderabad.
Hyderabad. All right, my fault,
Yes,
Hyderabad.
sir. Yes, sir.
But you grew up in mainly New York, correct? And then you moved around a lot. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, man. It's been a journey. I was born in Saudi. I moved to New York. I pretty much lived in New York for like 17 years. Yeah, pretty much grew up in New York literally my whole life. Moved to Pennsylvania, Eastern Pennsylvania, like I don't even know what year at this point. So I guess I was in New York a little less. I think it's 15 years. I moved to when I was in middle school. So like right before high school, I moved to Pennsylvania. Um, and then did middle school in Pennsylvania, 1 year middle school, and then 1 year of high school in Pennsylvania. And then I moved
Mm.
back to Saudi. And then I moved back to Saudi for a year. So I lived in Saudi for about a year and a half. Did about 10th grade of high school, and I did about 11th grade, or no, I did about 10th grade of high school there. And then I moved to Chicago. Well, a small town out of
Mm.
Chicago. It's like about 2 hours away from Chicago, Peoria, Illinois. Went to high school, finished my high school there. So it was like 11th grade and 10th grade, or 11th and 12th grade there. And then obviously moved back to Pennsylvania for undergrad. Went to Penn State,
Yeah.
obviously, with you. So then that was 4 years. And then moved to Dallas in 2023 or 2024. Not 20, when did we graduate? 2017. 2017 moved to 2016, 2017 moved to, yeah, Dallas. I've been in Dallas since and just recently moved to somewhere else. But yeah, we've been in Texas since 2017, roughly. But it's been a crazy journey,
Wow.
man. It's been a crazy journey. Like I literally tell people all the time, like when you ask me where I'm from, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, like where I grew up. Like I grew up in New York, but like where I'm from is such a tough question. Like there's every single like area has like helped me grow, like every in its unique way, bro, for sure. Like growing up in New York, like you obviously were really introduced to diversity really early.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people didn't have the privilege, like, being a brown person, like you're literally like inside a school, like you go to like my elementary school or even my like, third or fourth grade, we're all like, different ethnicities. Like we had Asians, I had like Mexicans, I had white people, I had Desi, other brown
Yeah.
people, like we're all like there early on. So personally for me, I can't, I know a lot of people haven't, but like I haven't experienced this racism that like people have grown up in like the whiter side of places, like, sort of rural
Yeah.
Pennsylvania or rural even New York or anywhere else in the world where, diversity is not really thing about New York is, it's been diverse since the 80s, since the 70s even. So it's
Yeah.
such a unique spot. However, I would say though, when I did move to Pennsylvania, I did feel like there was a lot of like the difference was crazy. Like I moved to a small town
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania because my dad's work. It's called Easton, 5 minutes away from the city. But essentially, the small city, like, it was a small town essentially where, you
Very.
know, majority people were white. So then I felt like that's when I sort of felt like, yeah, this is crazy. Like I feel a little out of place, sort of in a way. A lot of like all my neighbors, like even though my neighbors were sort of diverse, right? I had a like black neighbor and then I had one that was Hispanic. But at the time, the brown people were really like just like they had this like stigma towards. I don't know if it was like post 9/11 or something. Like it was just like that time in 2000s where it was just like brown people were like the bottom of the barrel type stuff. Like oh, like
Hmm.
you'll be the butt of the jokes. Like I had
Yeah.
one of these white friends back growing up. Like we would hoop together. He would come on and be like, man, your house smell like curry all the time. Stuff funny like that. Like what I'm saying, like my mom would be cooking, and how the brown household is like your mom's be cooking all the time. We got the
All the
we got
time.
this we got the stove in the garage. You feel me? Like we throw in, we throw in 4 meals, 3 meals a day, like cooking. So these people aren't used to seeing that and smelling that, and they ain't used to flavor. So they used to come up and be like, your house be smelling. But that's just funny stuff. But and, and personally, like in terms of being attacked, like from a racist perspective, I've never been like attacked, but I've definitely felt the disconnect for sure between like being brown and being like any other race at the time. Versus like in America, like in New York, it was just like completely like I went, I went about my day like normal. Like I had mostly diverse friends. I had a bunch of black friends growing up. I had a bunch of Hispanic friends growing up. And obviously, when you're that young, you don't really talk about race. You're not really developed to be like, oh, racism is a thing to make fun of or something. Then when you get to like the high school era, that's another era. So like obviously, when I did middle school, went to Saudi for a year. That's when I like learned a lot. Like Saudi, I was like, man, I want to kill myself before I go to Saudi. I don't why do I want to go to Saudi? I grew up in America. Like, why do I need to go to Saudi? But essentially, my dad's work, dragged him there, and so he moved us out there. But it had to be the best year of my high school life for sure, which is crazy, man.
Mm.
It's like you don't expect it to be, but like that's where I made my like a bulk of my majority of my really closest friends was high school in Saudi. Still keep up to this day, and they have like, they have like friends from everywhere because I went to an American international school there in Jeddah,
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia. So like a lot of all the other people were in the same boat I was. They either moved from America or they moved from other different countries where their dad had got a job or something. And so we had put in this like American curriculum school. And so like all the people were sort of like, it was like a melting pot in Saudi. And so that's where we met like a bunch of people, and people are like so different overseas because you're like, everyone's so open to like making friends, or like they don't have cliques. So like, when you go to a brand new school, don't know what single person, it's sort of scary. So you're like, I don't know what to expect. But first year I went there, bro, literally, like I'm telling you, I made friends in like a matter of minutes. Everybody was so open, like to like everything, like racism. Not really. I mean, you have like racism within like, an Arab majority company, like an Arab majority country. Like you're gonna see racism between Arabs and non-Arabs, but the non-Arabs
Yeah.
itself, like that's a big pool. So like, non-Arabs, you were getting along with a bunch of other people, like Sudanese and all these other like ethnicities. Um, and not to say the Arabs are racist, they weren't, but when you go outside of like the school, you can see sort of this disparate racism where if you're not Arab, you have like less rights or something like that. But outside of that, like it was such a good year. But then and I moved back to like Illinois for for college. I was like getting ready for college, like putting applications in. So my dad was like, "You need to go back to the States." At the time, my aunt was living in there, so she was like, "We are like, all right, we're gonna move there because we had rented our house in Pennsylvania, so we're just like, all right, let's move to Illinois." So we ended up moving to Illinois. That's where I was like, all right, this is a small town. Peoria, Illinois is like a very small town. I don't know if you've heard of it, but that's when you're like, you're in high school, so you're in like the peak of like that bullying era. You know what I mean? Like when you're in
Yeah.
high school, like that's when you start to apparently notice all this different stuff. So that's when I noticed like, okay, like, there's a lot of white people here. Like brown people are like, you know, the secondary. Not to say that they were racist, but you can tell like, white people had their own cliques. Brown people had their own cliques. Like it was just like a very like apparent friend circle type of deal. Like all my friends were brown.
Yeah.
And so like at that point, it was just like, all right, the whites getting along with the whites. We had like we had the brown crew, like a bunch of my like close friends now, or even now are all brown, but that just happened because it is. But it's more so like a lot of the different elements of how like, I was a new person coming in the 11th grade. Most people are freshman year to senior year, they stay in one school. I went to like 3 different high schools in 4 years. So it was crazy. Those are crazy, like constant moving, like making new friends every year was such a pain in the ass. But that year I saw like, okay, it's easier to make friends with brown people because you connect with them a lot easier than say a white person. Who may not really, you know, openly invite you to be in their crew comparatively. But that was an interesting year. And then yeah, and then see when I got to college, when we got to Penn State, like obviously met a lot of people, and not to say I think majority of our outside of you, like no other brown like friends really. So
Yeah.
that's what's crazy because when I moved when I moved to Dallas, bro, it was crazy because like I moved into like an environment where there's a lot of Muslims, either even from a religious standpoint, like a bunch of Muslims that you surround yourself with happen to be brown, but not to say that that's like the only Muslims, but we just kind of naturally felt like you belong a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like when I moved to Dallas, like all my friends are now brown, like Muslim brown people. But I have friends that are outside of that, but you're not as close just because naturally, like you connect with people that you relate to. And
Yeah.
so like you relate to a lot more people. You just tend to relate to people that are more, value aligned comparatively to say the, non-Muslim folks or the non, brown folks, something like that. But I know I love that's a and say I don't have friends that are that way, but my closest friends I happen to be Muslim and brown, so that's how it is.
Yeah. That makes
Uh,
sense. Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. I mean, I had a similar journey, but not as much moving. It was just more, I was more stagnant. So I know
yeah,
exactly what you're talking about. And that's just something that, I think everyone has their own journeys and it
over
gives you
here,
different perspectives and allows you to grow differently from it. But, it is what it is.
100%,
It's different. Um,
no
but
doubt about it.
Ralph, like I would say, honestly, man, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I I honestly I probably will bring you back. I would love to bring you back a second time, but we just sit down and just chat healthcare and just like diversify and just break it down
No, for
bit by
sure.
bit. But usually before I end the podcast, because our parents have always had a good influence. Well, we hope to have a good influence on us. If there are two lessons, because you obviously moved around a lot, and your dad had a lot of different jobs, and your mom, took care of the house. Some under the assumption. What are two lessons you could give the audience from your parents that you've kind of kept as you've gotten older? You know,
Damn, that's a good question. There's a lot. Damn, two would be tough to let me think.
just two.
Yeah, I'm
One
gonna
is
split it
even
up.
harder, but
Yeah. The only logical way I can think about this is, lessons I've learned from my mom and my dad, two separate things, right? So,
eh,
coming from a traditional household, you have a lot of different expectations for not only, I mean, as a parent, you have a lot of different expectations for what you like either expect from your kids or, I've heard stories where other parents are very strict on their kids growing up and they have a certain like, you know, they have a certain way of doing things and they've kept like a very, very tight rope on their children. Personally speaking, like my parents have never done that to me nor to my siblings. I have an older brother and a
eh,
younger sister. They've always let us be us in a way that like I can't speak for the rest of the world, but like I've heard stories where, you're not allowed to go out at night, you're not allowed to hang out with this person. Like their parents control a lot of their life. And that's just a brown thing, and that's a brown thing. It's a very common thing to hear if you interview a lot of other brown people, like you probably hear a lot of this where like, especially if you're a girl in the family, they have less rights than the guy in the family or the boy in the family, for example. But no,
yeah,
my parents have never done that. Like literally growing up, like I've had full autonomy of like, okay, as long as I keep my parents informed, for example, if I'm going out with my friends, for example, like as long as I keep them informed of where I'm going, like they're not going to say no. Like I've gone to like field trips, like multiple field trips. I've gone to trips with friends. Like, I never really had that really like, so that openness of being able to do that really connects because you're really like, initially you're like, oh, okay, like my parents are not that strict. Like what you see is stricter parents now, like if you're really strict on your kids now, growing up, they're gonna sort of envy you, and then also like once as soon as they get their autonomy or like they go to college or
oh,
and like they're gonna just
that's
start unraveling. You know what I mean? Because
they do.
all the stuff you've held them back from, they're like, now I could do it, and now I'm free. I'm a free bird. Like I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. I want to experience this. I want to experience drugs. I want to do this. Like I've seen that like from a psychological standpoint, because like you've been bottled your
Yeah,
whole life. So like, no, I shout out my parents. They've literally like they kept us all on the like very like open, but they also kept us like very informed of what to do, what not to do, and like you respect that because you're like, all right, if they're giving me something, I gotta give something back, right? So like you're literally like, okay, you're gonna allow me to go outside, you're gonna allow me to do this, you're gonna allow me to go on trips, whatever. But what I owe you is obviously not to get into something stupid, not to do, drugs or not to do this, not to that. So a lot of the stuff that has got me to this point is obviously just because of that freedom. And then I want to mention this because it's a very brown thing, like profession, right? Like when you talk about brown people, like the only thing they're fed is like doctor, engineer, lawyer, right? The three things you can
yep,
do in life. My parents have never forced that on me. Like literally from day one, they've always said like, my mom has always been like, yeah, it'd be nice if you a doctor, but you don't have to be like, it'd be nice to be one though. So like that's how I got into healthcare initially because I would want to please my mom for like being like a physician. Like she was like, oh, that'd be such a cool thing. I'd be like, I don't know, that would be nice. But that's how I like sort of started in that direction. But my dad has always been like, man, do your own thing. Like my dad's an engineer by profession, so he's literally like, you don't have to follow me. Like literally, I hated math, so I'm like, I'm not gonna be an engineer, dad, regardless. But my brother went that way. He's the exact same thing my dad is now. But for me personally, I was like, listen, I'm gonna figure out what I want to do, but like I gotta find that thing myself because you know there's a lot of different people that are like telling me different things. And so my parents have never been like, you have to do doctor or you have to do dentistry, you have to do engineering, you have to do lawyer. They never put me in that bubble. So I just want to mention that because a lot of brown people don't have that luxury. But I think,
Yeah.
yeah, because they've been like conditioned since they want to do that, to do particular profession. But what was the question? I feel like I just started blabbering.
It's all right. Two
Yeah,
lessons,
two
man.
things,
I
two
mean,
lessons.
first one, yeah, two lessons.
Two lessons, yes. So my mom, I would say from something I learned from my mom was honestly transparency and like truth, like being able to like the biggest lesson was really just trusting, like trusting either like trust is I would say is the general thing. But
Hmm.
the more specific thing is just like trust in the relationship between either you or your parents or any relationship, just having trust in that is gonna grow into something that's gonna be a lot better in the future. So my mom always trusted me with things. I've always trusted her, like obviously I'm very close with my mom. But that never felt like, things have to be like hidden or, things have to not be spoken of. Like I told my parents everything growing up. So that's one thing for sure that has like helped me become the person I am for sure. The second thing from my dad I've learned is like being able to sustain something that, you may not particularly need. Like he's gone through so much stuff personally that he's like endured just for his family. So like
Hmm.
literally like, my dad worked like four jobs growing up, when I was when my older brother was born, he was working like four jobs, right? So he had to like really grind, dude. Like and he never complained once. He never like brings it up or he never like tells me about it. Like, oh, this, I did this for you. But like, you can just tell like his resilience of like being able to like, and then
Correct.
obviously, and then you realize that, and you realize like how easy your life has been because, alhamdulillah, I was in a phase where I didn't have to work during college. Like, I didn't have to work during college. I didn't have
Yeah.
to, pay the bills. A lot of people are in a scenario where they have to work during college, pay tuition themselves.
Yeah.
Being able to have to pay the bills and like thank God, like my parents never put me in that situation. My dad always was like, "This is
Hmm.
my responsibility is to get you through college. You don't have to do anything. Just focus on school." I never, yeah, like I said, never worked in college, so like I had to, focus on. Say, I had no excuse, uh, to focus on just like schoolwork. And then just learning resilience really from my father to kind of be like, all right, we gonna get through whatever we need to get through. He's gonna take care of my parent. He's gonna take care of his kid regardless of if he has to work two jobs, three jobs. And then not really putting that burden on us either. Like he never was like, oh, you need to like pay your bills or you need to do this. Like he provided for three kids without really, at the time having a degree. Yeah, eventually got his master's and then got into like a proper thing. Growing up, like yeah, like I never felt like I never felt like we lacked anything. You know what I'm saying? So that's a credit to my dad for sure. So resilience for my dad, man, and like trust for my mother. That's two things for sure that I would
I
say,
love that, Ralph. I love that.
sir.
So hey, listen, I agree. I think those are two really, really key factors. And when you're trying to look at what makes a human successful, or if you're going to raise a successful human, I think resilience and then trust. Those are two real
Oh,
big
for
heavy
sure,
hitters. And
dude.
so,
Resilience is so
I'm
big.
glad that your parents got to teach you that. Yeah, it
Resilience is
really
so big,
is.
yeah. And I like optimism too. Like my dad taught me the 100% optimism. Like you ain't gonna dredge yourself in the bad things, right? Always like
Yeah.
100. One thing I'll never forget, man. He's like literally things could always be worse. Like unless you're dead,
Yeah.
things could always be worse.
Always we were. Absolutely.
Literally,
My dad's the
unless
same way.
things could always be like any
Always.
hiccup, anything, bro. You'd be like, it could be worse. Could have been worse. Like, yeah, right. Could have been worse for sure. Like, you lose a job, like, okay, you could have died. Like things like that. Just a little from a perspective of like, of the overall perspective of life. Just like anything could have been worse, and you're just like, you're right. If you look at it from that lens, you're like, yeah, you know what? I'm glad that it wasn't the worst thing that could have happened. I mean, so you just look at life
Yeah,
from an optimistic standpoint. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. But Ralph, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure talking to you, man.
bro, been a blast, bro.
Like I said, we could always talk forever, but I
I'm
just want to
saying,
take time and thank the audience for joining us for this podcast episode of Mind, Body, and Roots. I hope you guys are well. You guys learned a ton from Ralph. His insight is amazing. And honestly, I love him as a friend and a brother. So, Ralph, thank you again so much. And thank you to the audience for, paying attention for this long and just hearing everyone's story. So be well, everyone. Take care. And thank you again.